the trauma. Just days ago, they were bitter rivals. Now, they're a political double act who've pledged to build a partnership that lasts. But with such long-cherished principles at stake, not to mention grassroots activists who've spent years campaigning against each other, how can Cameron and Clegg make their political marriage work? Katie Razzle's been trying to find out.
The garden looked perfect for the big day. An expectant congregation there to witness a union. This is a very modern civil partnership, but traditional in its vows. Each man said, "I do," for better, for worse.
Cameron and Clegg are peas of a pod. I think they have the same sort of outlook on the world. I think they're culturally very similar individuals. I think they approach politics in much the same fashion.
This then, the icing on the proverbial wedding cake. The Conservative tree, a home for the Lib Dem bird, now tweeting happily on a branch. Sunlit uplands beckon. Well, 100 miles west in Chippenham, the outlook isn't so sunny. On Saturday, these Wiltshire Conservatives were adamant they didn't want their leader to give ground to the Lib Dems.
They haven't been in power for 90 years for a reason.
It's the Lib Dems that are in trouble.
I don't think they have principles.
The election campaign was bitter between Conservatives and Lib Dems here in Chippenham and across the country. So how are the grassroots feeling about their leader's love-in? Today they were making the best of it.
Going to redesign the Conservative logo. It's going to be the green tree with a little yellow bird nestling in the top somewhere.
But they weren't giving the marriage that long.
Until people get fed up with it.
18 to 24 months.
I'd like to hope it'd be longer, but 2.5 years.
The biggest stumbling block from grassroots level, which is where we come in, at local council and party activists, is the position of Deputy Prime Minister and being given to Nick Clegg. I think that will go down very badly at lower level.
I find it slightly amusing that I think overall they've got 56 members of Parliament, and nearly half of those are going to have a job in government.
We are, we do have more power than you. We are taking you over. So
corporate trainers like this work with companies during mergers and takeovers. They use role play to guide them through what's often a painful business.
Soft skills are the buzzwords here. Conflict management, team building. They're issues business deals with every day. So what lessons are there for the political newlyweds?
Let's take this out of the way.
Those in charge here suggest Messrs Cameron and Clegg are making the right noises, removing barriers between themselves, talking of their common vision, identifying core values.
because you've got people, quite frankly, who are better than people who are doing the same role.
Who sits where is a real source of conflict, they say. So Nick Clegg's all right with his office in Downing Street. As for those in their parties who don't support the coalition,
we actually get the people who are motivated, who really become spokesmen, who become champions of the new regime, whatever that regime is. And what tends to happen is if you develop them more and more and give them better skills and help them communicate and help them talk to the top brass, the people who are sniping, or what's known as the terrorists in the business, actually they begin to get quieter and quieter because they don't have the audience that they had.
will that theory translate to politics once the party's over, if political differences eat away at the goodwill? So far, there's been no outline of any mechanism to keep the coalition on track when events divide Lib Dem from Tory. One Conservative bigwig summed up how he views this marriage.
A dynamic cross between a bulldog and a chihuahua. It's going to do fantastically well, and it's going to have hybrid vigour as a result.
They may well need some marriage guidance along the way, and a bit of good luck to keep their parties faithful. For the moment, though, it's honeymoon time. I hear Downing Street is pretty nice this time of year.
You're not going to believe it, but as they wind this circus up down here, the wedding bells are pealing out from Westminster Abbey behind me. I don't know if you can hear them. Well, if you push it, you can. Anyway, the psychoanalyst Susie Orbach, who is a highly experienced person in relationship counselling, joins us now. How, then, are people to cope as they look in on a couple of people who once seemed to hate each other and now love each other?
Yeah, you're right. There's two parts of this problem. There's the problem between them and there's the problem for us who aren't used to a coalition, or we think we aren't used to a political coalition. But in a way, we've all grown up in families, or most of us have, and sometimes we have two parents, and we know how they war. And we know what a kind of collaborative and yet problematic leadership can look like. We know it in our bones. And I think once we get used to that notion that this has something to do with a family that is at odds with itself and has to somehow cooperate, we might be able to adjust a little bit easier.
That's all right if the family sort of is living in peace, but if the family's going to have to go beating up everybody and telling them you can't have any more of that, no more cake, and none of that jam...
But I think that sounds like most families, doesn't it?
So you think people won't find this at all traumatic?
I think we're finding it very problematic at this point because we're so used to a kind of politics that's only adversarial.
Who's going to do their relationships counselling when it breaks down between them?
Well, hopefully there's a lot of work going on right at the moment to enable not just them, but the whole nation to rethink what it means to be politically literate and emotionally literate. I think we've got an opportunity to rethink things. There are sharp divisions in British politics, but a lot of the time we know, watching things in the House, the differences are manufactured. Now, they've got some real serious differences. They're going to have to work very hard to find a way to say they still have those differences rather than pretend they don't, and to help us with the things that we can all join up on.
Respect them rather than hide them under the carpet.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the only grown-up way to do. And I think the other thing I think it would be really good if they don't blame the last government all the time. That would be really a grown-up way to address politics today.
Susie Orbach, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's Channel 4 News. Good evening.